All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the fourth and final webinar of the Sustainable Hospitality webinar series. We're sad that it's coming to an end, but we've had such great speakers and great discussion this week. So huge shout out to Sophia for bringing all of these speakers together and all of this information together. Today, we are specifically going to be talking about green purchasing and events. So we've got two speakers that are very experienced in that regard, and we're excited to hear from them. So a couple housekeeping items before we begin. Everyone is muted upon entry to reduce the amount of background noise, but we really do want to have a discussion, and at the end of the presentations, we are going to have a small question and answer portion where if you do have questions or comments regarding anything that was talked about, that we would love for you to send that in the chat, and I'll make sure that our speakers are asked those so they can answer them. I'm sending a chat right now to everyone so you can see where that chat box is. Now, I will say, please make a note that whenever you're sending it, there's a little drop down where it says send to. And make sure that you send that either to all panelists, all participants, or one of the selections that have the word host in it. That way that I will get that and I can write that down and make sure that our speakers are asked those questions. Other than that, I think I will throw it over to Sophia to get us started.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the last webinar session of the week. It's been super pleasant to be able to give the opportunity to facilitate this whole process, and thank you guys for coming. So to our speakers, I just want to say that thank you, appreciate the time you put in preparation for this webinar, and after this week, we will upload all the recordings as well as the PowerPoints and house them permanently as a part of our Sustainable Hospitality website online. So this webinar will have an impact on this hour, so I'm excited to get started. Okay, you know the drill. So if you've been to the previous session, how it goes is I will begin by talking about TDAC and our office in position to TDAC. So TDAC, the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation, is one of the Tennessee State Department, and we like to say that we regulate almost everything from air, water, forest, land, all of it. So our purpose, the purpose of TDAC is to enhance the quality of citizens in Tennessee as well as promoting environmental stewardship. And for our Office of Sustainable Practices, we have the special position. Personally, I think it's privileged to be a non-regulatory branch of TDAC. So we get to do a lot of programming that focus on promoting and educating businesses and communities on how to adapt sustainable practices beyond existing environmental regulation. And here is an example of some business programs that we have. We don't have the space to list them all, but overall we have programs that are industry specific, such as the Green Star Partnership, Sustainable Spirits, or Sustainable Hospitality. On the other hand, we also have programs that are not program specific, but more practice specific, such as the Get Food Smart program focused on food waste diversion and reduction, materials management solution trying to create a circular economy and landfill diversion for different industry. We also have the Small Business Environmental Assistance Program that has supported thousands of businesses across Tennessee in the past decade, so it's super awesome. So, in a second, I will send a link to our website as well as a newsletter that we post on a monthly basis about our programming and the upcoming events. So if you want to stay connected with our office, Office of Sustainable Practices, OSP, there are definitely ways for you to do that, and I'll drop that information really quick. And cutting to the reason why you're here today, I'm going to introduce myself briefly as well as the speakers. My name is Sophia Yan. I am the Business Sustainability Intern at the office at OST. This is actually my second to last week of my internship, so very excited to be here. Besides OSP, outside of TDAC, I am a third-year student at Vanderbilt University studying economics and organizational behavior. And now I'm going to hand it over to the speaker, Jeff and Cris, to talk about, introduce themselves, what is the major topic they're going to cover today, as well as answering the recurring icebreaker question, what is your favorite city and county in Tennessee, and what is an underrated tourist destination in Tennessee? My supervisor told me to change the icebreaker questions up for every session, but selfishly, I just want to hear everyone's answers so I can make a travel list before I graduate Vanderbilt. So this has been super helpful and excited to hear the answer from Jeff and Cris.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, it's great.
Okay, good. Hi, I'm Jeff Gowdy. I'll go first since I'm on the left there. So I'm a director at SustainServe. We are a global sustainability management consulting firm. We're based in Zurich, Switzerland. We have offices in Munich and Frankfurt. Our main office in the U.S. is Boston, and we are also here in Nashville. That's where I'm located, office in Green Hills. Little background, I'm a graduate of the University of Virginia, studied systems engineering. I often say that I think sustainability is the greatest systems problem facing man. And we're talking about one aspect of that systems problem today. We'll get to that in a minute. I'm also an adjunct professor at Vanderbilt. Taught at Owen, the Graduate School of Management. This is my 13th year teaching there, just wrapping up a spring course. And I also teach, I'm the faculty advisor to the juniors of the Ingram Scholar Program. That's undergrad. My favorite city, not really a city, it's more of a town. I like to go up to Beersheba. I like places that are kind of at the end of the road, and Beersheba is really at the end of the road. It's up near Stone Door. I like going to Stone Door a lot. I think that walk down the natural rock steps through the rock, it's kind of like an archway, takes you into South Cumberland State Park, and it's really good backpacking. I love backpacking. So to me, that's my favorite spot, kind of across I-24 over at Sewanee. Also really love going to Sewanee. I think it's a little gem within Tennessee. I guess both of those are tourist destinations. So yeah, I think they're both underrated.
Great. Thank you for sharing. I just looked up the picture. It looks beautiful. Now, Cris.
Hello, good morning, everybody. I am Cris Angsten. My husband and I own Oakleaf Cottage. We're just a small wedding venue. We're actually technically located in Northwest Georgia, but we're about 20 minutes outside of Chattanooga, Tennessee. So if that, as far as the icebreaker question, I'm a big fan of Chattanooga. I've watched it change over the last 20 years. I've been super impressed by the ways it's changed and the more sustainable it's become, and just really love how it's been really developing over the last several years. So as far as Oakleaf goes, we kind of fell into this business. My husband and I have always been more on the green side of things, but we had a whole lot that we wound up learning whenever that we kind of fell into owning a wedding venue. So I'll go more into that in a little bit, but I'm super excited to be here. And then as far as an underrated tourist destination in Tennessee, it's sad to say I don't really get out much, but I really love Townsend. So it's a really cute little bitty town. And then, Dancing Bear Lodge is out there. I really love the Appalachian Bistro. So there's just a lot of super great hiking trails and everything around there. And it does get very busy in the summer. I definitely tend to prefer it in the winter because I'm a winter hiker. So there we go.
Great, thank you. So we'll kick off with Jeff's presentation on, let me see. So on sustainable supply chain and purchasing management. And let's go ahead. Just let me know when you want me to switch to the next slide or Caleb, you're doing the slide.
Okay, let's see. Is there anything else on here I want to talk about? Talked about Vanderbilt, talked about consulting. The last part is just some places for presenting and writing. So yeah, that's good. We can move on. Okay, sustainable procurement process. You can see there at the bottom, there's quite a few third-party certifications. First one's Energy Star, there's WaterSense, Green Seal, B Corp, as over there to the right, Safer Choice. There are dozens of these, and those are certainly helpful when starting a sustainable procurement process. But I want to back it up just a little bit. Just from a consulting standpoint, we do three major services with clients. So upfront strategy, program implementation, which is usually involving data, and then reporting and communications. So a real key component in the strategy part is doing a sustainability materiality. So what that really means is that it's based on financial materiality, which is really looking at risk management. When we do a sustainability or ESG materiality, we're looking for risk and opportunities. And we're taking the 10,000 things you could do as a company, a school, a church, whatever you are, a home, an individual, and getting it down to what matters the most. And that short list is usually between 5 and 15 environmental, social, and governance issues. And often, procurement is in that list of material issues. But I want to really emphasize and stress that point that doing that upfront determination of what environmental and social and governance impacts are the ones that you most can influence and also create value for your business is where that makes the most sense. And so sustainable procurement, while it may be applicable for some industries and some companies as being very highly material, for others it may not be, and that's okay. You can always dabble in it and do a little bit better. So, from our experience of doing sustainable materiality and then helping clients with their procurement process, these three steps are really summarize that. So an evaluation of what you can choose from, developing a policy, and then actually implementing that policy and doing that. Past examples include a very large hotel chain that we worked with, and we, as part of their overall sustainability program, the sustainable procurement process was put in place. Now, there's multiple ways that you can set this up and do the evaluation and construct your policy. One component could be a negative screen or a negative filter. We're not going to purchase X because of this reason. It could be a certain plastic type, or it could be all non-recyclable plastics. So that's a negative screen or negative filter. So really looking at how can we get rid of the worst 10, 20, 30% of what we're purchasing. You could do, on the flip side, a positive screen or a positive filter and say we're only going to buy within our procurement practice and policy things that are third-party certified, and here are the list of the certifications that we're going to focus on. And it could be one or more of the ones that are presented on this slide. I do want to point out that the one on the right, B Corp, takes it to a whole new level. B Corp is a benefit corporation certification. It's voluntary to apply for that, and it is at the company level. And it's a point I want to stress is that in the marketplace right now for green, sustainable, eco, insert your favorite buzzword, there are hundreds, thousands of different labels and third-party certifications and promotions and messaging around this. And it's really important to look at that and to determine what's the universe for what's being certified or promoted as eco. At the lowest level, it's an attribute. So you may be buying something that, let's say the packaging is 20% recyclable. That's great, but what about the other 80%? What about the product that's inside the packaging? what about the company that is creating the product? It could be an absolutely horrible company, and it could be absolutely horrible product, but the certification that you're looking at is just for the packaging on the outside, and it's only 20%, say, recyclable. So that's a very important distinction to make. And I always say that if you're really going to do this comprehensively and sustainably, you're going to go all the way to the company level, because when you're looking at a company that's, say, B Corp certified, they've inherently reported and messaged and communicated and on their products, on their packaging, on everything of their operations. So if you don't remember anything else, I would say try to remember that. Do some investigation into what you're looking at. And so the general levels are product attribute, product itself, company itself. And the leading companies are going outside of their boundaries now of saying, okay, well, we're going to become, say, net zero or net positive outside of our four walls of operation and extend to working with our suppliers or working with our customers or working with our industry association. So obviously this is a journey, and the destination, in my opinion, is to be able to measure sustainability. And in order to do that, you've got to look at your material, environmental, social, and governance categories. And let's say there's 10 of those. Then you're going to need to figure out where you are, what's your baseline, what year is your baseline, and what's the science-based threshold to get to sustainability. It's not sustainability unless the science behind it shows that what you're doing can occur in perpetuity forever. And I think that's something that almost everybody misses when they launch a sustainability program and do a sustainability program, is that measurable aspect. You know, if something's slightly better from a green or eco or sustainability standpoint, it doesn't mean it's sustainable. It just means it's slightly better than what you did before. We have to look to science to figure out what's the finish line. And in many cases, how do you go beyond it? Because a lot of companies aren't doing anything. So if we're going to reach sustainability as a global economy, as an American economy, as a Tennessee economy, we've got to get there for everybody. So in some cases, the leaders are going to have to do more and go beyond that bare minimum of sustainability. And so procurement's a huge part of it. Not everything, but it's a very important component, especially for companies that are procuring quite a bit of stuff for their offices, or that procurement process is going into, say, a manufacturing process. I'll pause here, see if anybody has any questions on that short pontification.
Just we'll also have a dedicated Q&A session in the end. So if people want to just contemplate more and pose the questions, we can do that too.
All right, we can go to the next one. Okay, so aligning your green purchasing with financial returns. So as SustainServe, this is the approach we take with our clients no matter what we're looking at. We're trying to determine, again, what are the most material issues, meaning what can you do that creates the best, most, deepest environmental improvement and social improvement, and governance helps that. Governance is like policies in your board and things like that. And so we're looking for aligning these environmental, social, and governance issues with business value. And so in my opinion, there are 6 buckets or chunks of business value. And most companies come in the sustainability door from the cost saving standpoint. What can we do right now that if we did this, we'll save this much? And that's really what the first entry here, conservation savings is about. And the most common ones to act on are energy, waste, and water. So it's obviously not rocket science that if you can lower your energy use by 10% or 20%, you're going to save on your costs. And a lot of times that's buying products with certain labels, like we saw in the previous slide, Energy Star. I did a project when I was just starting to do this kind of work, 15, 16, 17 years ago. And that was one of the aspects we looked at a project, a development here in Nashville. It was a multi-building development, like a condo facility. And that was one of the things we looked at, was how much energy was going to be saved across the, I think, 10 units over time by having Energy Star appliances in there, and also WaterSense. Often those eco-efficient, they're more efficient. They use less energy and less water. They often cost a little bit more up front, but when you do the payback period, you look at that and say, okay, well, if I paid $100 extra, but I'm saving, $100 every 6 months, your payback period is 6 months, and so every 6 months after that, you're saving $100. That's a no-brainer, and for most companies, 2.5, 3 years is their payback period. For you as an individual at a home or a private company, you can do whatever you want. You could have bought a electric vehicle or a hybrid vehicle 10 years ago, and the payback period would have probably been 12 years. Now with gas prices at $4.09 or whatever they are, it might pay itself off in a year and a half or 2. So that's a good calculation to make, because if you are concerned with how quickly it'll pay itself off, you can quickly do the math on that, and that also incorporates the product lifetime value. Local supply chain, I would say that falls under the category of brand and reputation. So I said there are 6 real buckets of business value. We're trying to link ESG issues to business value. So on the cost side, there's short-term cost savings. In the long term, risk management, risk mitigation is really another phrase for lowering the probability of costs in the future. And then on the other side of the profit equation, profit equals revenue minus costs. So those are the 2 cost ones. The other buckets of business value are, can we generate revenue more with our current customers? Can we attract other ones through brand and reputation enhancement? So I think the local supply chain aspect fits really well into the brand and reputation part. So I know a lot of restaurants in the Nashville area do buy from a local supply chain, and they use that to promote their restaurant. And for people like me and my wife that want to support small businesses, local farms, support the local food economy, that marketing and messaging helps us to link up our values to where we want to go eat. So I think that the local supply chain part really aligns well with brand and reputation. So those are 4 buckets, and then on the outer end, I would say the upfront one, you could call it, from a positive standpoint, table stakes. Table stakes kind of as a reference to playing cards or going to Vegas. What is it required to sit at the table? And so there's many opinions on that, but there are generally some expectations now for, if you're a business operating in the year 2022, what are you absolutely at a minimum expected to do? Like having a recycling program in your office, probably one of those. On the flip side, looking out 3, 4, 5 years, we often refer to it as pre-competing. What can we do right now on a sustainability issue that may be just coming up, maybe it's not become mainstream, but we have an inkling that it's going to be important to our business 3, 4, 5 years out. How can we pre-compete on that? And for example, that could be, right now, I don't know, in Tennessee, pre-competing could be maybe meeting up with your main competitor and talking about a sustainability issue that affects the industry. And then if you work together and shared best practices, you could get a 50% improvement as opposed to just a 5% by addressing it individually. We've seen that happen quite a bit over the past few years, where bitter rivals, like a Coke versus Pepsi kind of thing, where they come together and they pre-compete. They help create the rules that aren't in place yet, and to their own benefit. So I'll pause there. I'm happy to take questions now or after Cris goes to.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. And I'll be watching the chat box. If you have any questions on any of the information that Jeff was talking about, or if you just want to pick his brain, feel free to put those questions in the chat. And then once we get to the question and answer after Cris is done with her presentation, I will bring those up and we can get those answered. So thanks, Jeff, again. And next, I'm passing it over to Cris, and the floor is yours.
Hello, hello. Well, good morning, everybody. I am super happy and excited to be here. Like I said earlier, I am one half of Oak Leaf Cottage. That's my husband there in this photo. We bought this property probably about 6 years ago. We actually knew nothing about weddings. We weren't actually planning on making it a wedding venue at all. It wasn't until somebody made a suggestion and said, you know, this place would be an amazing wedding venue, that we decided to kind of dip our toes into it. But in order to kind of help fund it becoming a wedding venue, we were initially an Airbnb. I think I mentioned earlier that my husband and I have always kind of tried to be more on the green side of things. We've always composted and recycled and all of that. And I learned pretty quickly as an Airbnb that people don't tend to sort everything, and so I just kind of took it on myself. I was just sorting through the trash, and I thought rather naively that I could kind of run weddings the same way, and that was true at first maybe because all of those weddings were 35 to 40 people, and so sorting out that trash at the end of the night was really not that big a deal. And then we had our first 60-person wedding, and suddenly we had 2 entire truckloads of trash. And I will tell you on that event, like, I sorted the trash, Dave sorted the trash, I sorted it again, then we both sorted it, and we were like, no, it really is all garbage. Like, none of it could go to Goodwill, none of it could go to any other place but the landfill. And so I don't think either of us left that night. We were like, what have we gotten into? We just had no idea that, you know, weddings could be so wasteful. So we had a rather rude awakening to the incredibly wasteful world of weddings. So I found this little statistic. The average wedding of 125 people, which is roughly the size of our venue, we max out at 125. Most of our weddings are probably around 80 to 100 people, but they produce between 400 to 600 pounds of trash, and I'm not sure how they calculated the 63 tons of carbon dioxide. I would say that probably varies depending upon whether you're a destination venue or how far people have traveled and how many people are flying in, how much stuff is brought in and all of that. So we try to control some of those things, but I've had, like, Sophia actually asked me, like, what are some of those waste sources, because it is such a shocking number. So there's certain things that are recyclable, like cans and paper and plastics and food waste and packaging, and then there's other things that can't really be recycled. So like floral foam, a lot of plastics, like, you know, Chattanooga in this area, Northwest Georgia, we can only do plastics 1 and 2. So it's kind of limited in that regard. And then, you know, things like fake flowers, which is kind of a constant battle, and then makeup applicators, floral cages, all of that kind of thing. So today what we're going to do is we're kind of break it down and look at it and see how can we reduce everything. So how first a venue can control the waste, whether you are a hotel or anything else, or actually a wedding venue, or just hosting some kind of events like seminars and stuff like that. And then looking at educating the couple and the vendor education, so another like huge big component of it. And then of course your staff education, like they have to be completely on board as well, or else you're really not going to fully get to what you need things to be. So for us, the first priority, of course, was waste management, because that was the thing that was absolutely stunning to us that we really had to take care of. So we looked at our trash first, and we said, okay, we've got recyclable materials, we have food waste, and then we have a lot of avoidable plastics like plastic cups, plates, and cutlery, and that kind of thing. So we kind of looked at all that and said, okay, what can we do? So we tried this method. This is actually still what we do in the cottage itself. We have a cottage that people can get ready in, and then of course we have the event space. So most of the time it's the wedding party in here, and you can see we have all of these cans labeled. I would say I can only think of 2 weddings where they actually did a great job of sorting this stuff. Usually they're busy drinking mimosas and stuff, and I just kind of plan that about twice during an event I'm going to have to sort through these containers. But on a larger scale, we tried it initially inside the barn or outside of the barn, and had, you know, like the big trash cans that were all labeled and everything. And what we discovered pretty quickly is that after people have had a beer or 2, all thoughts of being conservative or paying attention to labels kind of go out the window, and that's even if you've got people that have decent buy-in. And then, so we just tried a lot of different things, but this was, we discovered pretty quickly, it got gross. You would be up until 2 a.m. sorting through the trash, which is not fun, and I can't imagine if I had like a much larger venue how that would go. So, and then of course you've got like the trash, like people would still have half of beer in there and then dump it in there, and now you've got like a gross mess and nobody wants to smell like beer at the end of the night. So what we discovered we had to do is we started having our staff circulate through the event. So us being smaller, it kind of worked out well. It looks nice. There's no trash cans anywhere. My staff walks through the event. We look at everything. We kind of go, okay, this person's got some trash here. So they just kind of float and pick things up. And what's kind of interesting on an education level is that a lot of times guests will say, hey, where's the trash can? And one of my staff members will go, just hand it to me. We sort it. You don't have to worry about it. And so that's kind of a nice thing for our guests. It seems effortless to them. And then behind the barn here, we've got our little recycling area. You can see we've got like 2 containers at the bottom. That's for glass. We usually have 3. Actually, it just kind of depends on the event. If they've got clear, brown, or green glass, we just go ahead and sort it right away. It makes it easier later in the week to drop it all off. And then we've got like our bus tubs and stuff like that. And you can see our food bin. Because we also have, we work with Newterra Compost for all of our food waste. So anyway, we'll go through some more of this practice later, but that red can is for trash, and then we've got the blue can for aluminum, and then the gray can is for plastics, 1 and 2, that can't be recycled. And then we always have an area for the cardboard and stuff. Avoidable plastics was something that was huge to us. So I have an interior design background. This is what I used to do for fun. So now this is what I do for fun. I help our couples really design their events. And so to me, like a table is super important. And I wanted to make sure that there was excellent buy-in for like just avoiding that China plastic stuff. So I probably spent more or went a little more overboard than anybody needs to in order to avoid the China. But I will say that people really love this. Probably if you wanted to know expense-wise, I probably spent about $45,000 on all of the various kinds of vintage glassware and everything. So I understand most people are not going to want to spend that much money, and you really don't have to. I would say 90% of couples would be perfectly fine if you just had like a basic gold rim plate and a good wine glass and a good water glass. They will probably be perfectly happy with that. And then, of course, in order to do this and in order to make sure that we made sure that everything was washed properly, sanitized properly, we had to add on a dish ram, a 3-compartment sink. We have a high temperature washer that we named Shelby. Shelby working hard tonight is usually kind of our little gag joke around our employees. And then I would say our couples really see this as a massive bonus. And let me say there. So waste management, the food waste, that was a huge component to us, is trying to figure out what on earth to do with this. Initially, we were taking everything to a chicken farm up on Lookout Mountain. That worked out really well. The only problem was that chickens really can't have sugar, and of course weddings have a lot of things like cake and other sweets, so we had to take that out. And then of course if there was like a Mexican meal that was being served, we had to make sure there wasn't any avocado, because avocados can make chickens very sick. If you don't have a big composting firm, a commercial composting firm in your area, like Newterra, you could, like a chicken farm or even a pig farm would really be an option. And however weird it sounds to feed chickens chicken, they do it all the time. So apparently the people that farm the chickens said that's not a problem. So anyway. And then we spend a lot of time educating our couples, because if the couples are the ones that are driving, they're the ones that are hiring all of the vendors. And so if they're the ones that are saying, hey, this is really important to us, it really kind of helps in making sure that your vendors have excellent buy-in as well. We have a lot of meetings with them. I probably have, with their Saturday couples, I have about 3 design and styling meetings, but we're talking about how they can be making their event more sustainable. If they have any questions along the way, they hit any bumps along the way, we're right there to help. And then after sign-on, we actually have a template, that kind of explains, you know, here's a way that you can do green send-off items. Here's a good way to have your invitations and all of that. Here's sources for all of these things to make your life a little bit easier. And then, you know, we kind of talk about all these different things. It's just kind of a sample of what we offer and what we explain to them and kind of helping to reduce the waste sources. So we talk about kegs versus cans or bottles. Kegs are definitely my preference. When we first had a keg at a wedding, I was a little bit nervous because it's obviously it's a little bit more complicated at first to figure out how you're going to keep that thing cold. But, you know, we're just using our glassware, and my venue manager the other night said, could we do kegs all the time because there is literally no trash. She's like, we don't have a bunch of heavy cans or bottles anywhere. And then we, you know, bottles would probably be the next, like on the bottom of my wish list as far as like what's recyclable and everything. For us, glass winds up going to Chattanooga. There's actually a newer company called Olivine Glass that actually takes the glass and grinds it up and turns it into sand, which is really awesome. I have not connected with them yet. So far, I'm just kind of dropping everything off at the Chattanooga recycling facility, and I'm grateful that that's an option for us. And then with our couples tea, we talk about botanical paper, recyclable and paper, you know, paper invites that, you know, they even make plantable ones that have seeds in them. So there's so many little things here that could be just absolutely fantastic little touches that kind of not just offer for the couple to feel better, but also their guests too, that kind of like set that platform and kind of keep things more top of mind. We talk about group transport as opposed to having like everybody drive in a car. Our lot is fairly small. We only hold like 44 cars, but then we have a vendor parking lot as well to kind of help expand that a little bit when needed. But we really do push for group transportation because that does kind of really help with that footprint as well. And then we talk about repurposing. We really suggest local sources for food and florals. I'll talk more on florals in a minute and for food as well, but there's one caterer in particular who does a really good job at trying to source locally from local farms for the food. And then we also talk about dress rentals. There's 2 places that I know of in Atlanta where you can rent your wedding dress. And then I think there's one in Nashville. So that's something that's starting to kind of pick up because a lot of times the guys can rent their tuxes, but a lot of times it's still expected for the bride and bridesmaids to still all buy their things. So this is just kind of a cultural thing that I feel like is changing and needs to change. So catering is probably the place where I would say the most waste could possibly be coming from. So whenever there's a caterer that's new to us, we have a walkthrough with them. We talk about our practices. We explain what kind of plastic is okay, what is not. If we don't do that, and even sometimes when we do, we'll wind up finding things like gloves or plastic wrap mixed in with the plastics 1 and 2, which obviously that doesn't work well. We encourage the use of real chafing dishes. Those aluminum pans, they're not really aluminum, but those aluminum pans that you see a lot for a lot of catering things, those are not recyclable. They're not aluminum. There's some kind of mixture of metals. And then, of course, we explain our food bucket, and we explain like what can go in, what cannot. And then inside that kitchen area in the cottage, we have a list of just kind of quickly that kind of reiterates everything so that if they can't find one of us whenever they have a question, they have a list that they can look at and refer to and make sure that they're doing the right thing. And then, of course, there's all different kinds of ways of serving things. Sometimes at the end of the night in particular, they maybe don't want to make more dishes for us, which we really appreciate, or sometimes the couple really wants to have a different way of presenting things. So we've had like popcorn at the end of the night, and it's just put in paper bags. There's all kinds of like pressed leaf kind of organic material serving dishes and stuff, which are really cool. And so guests tend to really like that. There's also nice ways to present it all as well. So I really liked, this was from High Hot that they did this, and it really just looked phenomenal, all spread out on the table. It just made such a great presentation. And then it might surprise some on florals. We really refer a lot of florists who are foam-free. If you're not familiar, the foam that is used in florals is actually, it's full of formaldehyde. And so there's nothing that you can do with it. It gets used once, because after it's been used, it's got all these holes in it. You probably can't use it again. So a lot of florists are starting to move towards something called foam-free. And what they do is they soak straw overnight, and then they stuff it together and create a chicken wire kind of basket to hold it in. And that does a really good job of keeping the florals green throughout their service. And then they'll also use these little things, which I always make sure I give back to them later, that you can actually like put the little flower in here and it helps it stay, rather than sticking it in that florist foam, in that foam stuff. We also let our couples know to look at florals that are in season. And then there are probably 3 flower farms in the Chattanooga area. And so we tend to refer those pretty heavily as well, especially the ones that are closest to us, just because, again, it reduces that carbon footprint. And we really like having a relationship with Morgan over at Creekside. And then we're always trying to discourage fake flowers. I just want to touch on that really quick. It's sometimes kind of hard to do because sometimes people are just like, but it's cheaper, or I can buy them on sale at Michael's, because they always have those coupons and stuff. But they really need to think about the environmental impact of that. It is just landfill fodder. So I think I said we keep aside the floral cages. We give those back. Those plastic cages that are, I didn't bring one with me this morning, but we give those back to them, as well as keeping these things. And then along with anything else that I can possibly give back to them to keep on using. It cuts their costs. We tend to have the same vendors over and over, which is kind of nice. So that just kind of makes that part of our little supply chain a little bit easier. And let's see. Oh, and I forgot to mention, us being on as much land as we are, we're kind of fortunate as far as like what you do with those florals. I was kind of shocked at first to see, like, when the coordinators were clearing off the tables, they take all those gorgeous florals and they would put them straight in the trash cans. They didn't do anything else with them. There was nothing else to do with them as far as they knew. As far as other places they go, it's just trash. To us, we're able to take it out to a spot in the woods. We've got a place where a couple of trees came down, and I just started naturally just throwing them on top of there, and then suddenly I had foxes that were raising their kits in it, and they did that for about 2 years, which is really, really fun to see. I wish the foxes were still there. They moved away after a tornado blew through in 2020, but I'm hoping that the kits, now that they're grown, come back at some point. We have foxes in there again, because that was really special. I've got video of the fox babies playing, which is really cool. And then another big one, of course, is staff education. I stole this photo from New Terra Compost. You can actually kind of see it up there at the top that I did that. But I felt it really exemplifies the need to educate your staff. Obviously, this came from the compost bucket that was collected from a restaurant somewhere, and clearly there's a staffer that doesn't pay attention to all of what is going in there. So thankfully, they said that none of my silverware or the gold flatware that I have so painstakingly collected is in those bins. So I'm fairly sure my staff is okay, but it was kind of a shock to see this. So anyway, making sure your staff understands what goes in the proper bin, how to sort everything. We always know when we have somebody new and we still have some work to do, because we'll look and we'll be like, oh shoot, you know, like there's the wrong kind of plastic in this bin, and we're having to kind of sort back through things at the end of the night or before we take everything in the morning. So we want to make sure that they understand that process really well too, just to be able to explain it to guests, because guests are naturally very curious whenever that they find out that we're a green venue and they want to know, how does this work? So that's kind of nice. And then, of course, we had to give them education on serve-safe requirements for making sure that all of that dishware and glassware is washed properly. And then for us, I mean, all of this means that we don't just have like a giant dumpster somewhere to put all of the waste. We actually have to keep it sorted, of course, so that, you know, on Monday and Tuesday we could take everything down and take care of it. Our local transfer facility is not open until Tuesday. And so we kind of do, on Monday, it's our glass run to Chattanooga and also dropping off the food waste, and then Tuesday we drop off the rest of it. And then we heard about green spaces. We didn't actually know that it was an option to us until later. So it was a few years ago that I kind of wanted to say, you know what, it would be really nice to have a third party that looked at us and said, hey, you know, they're doing this stuff. They're trying to be a green venue, and also letting us know what else could we do in order to reduce our carbon footprint and be lighter on this earth, especially as a venue where we're bringing people in all the time. So they helped us convert a few things. We had most of our lighting was already LED. We changed over the rest of it, like the string lights in the barn were not. So that was kind of a big one. And then like changing out things like the shower heads to being low flow, making sure that all of our appliances were kind of energy smart, looking at our water sources. We're actually on a well, so we have to really pay attention to the quality of that water and everything, but making sure that what we're doing is, being water smart. And then we've never used pesticides or herbicides on our property. So reducing things like mosquitoes, we use something called Mosquito Barrier. It's a garlic product. It's very, very, very condensed. And so we usually spray it on Wednesday or Thursday so it doesn't smell like Mom's Italian kitchen on a wedding day, because otherwise people arrive and they go, so where's the garlic bread? So we don't want that to happen, especially if they're not serving garlic bread. And then I'll just say, like, our payoff is super, super, super happy couples. Our couples are so happy to feel like they're not contributing to the waste of the world. They kind of learn along the way. It becomes a point of pride. And I will say more and more of our couples are coming to us because we are a green venue. I think it's becoming more and more important to this generation. So that's very positive. It's a good feeling whenever that they're like, hey, I love that. What else can I do? That's pretty much all I had for you guys today. This is kind of like the same points I had a minute ago, but all of our goals is just to be able to be like one bag of trash at most at the end of the night. And a lot of that is like plastic wrap and stuff like that that we can't do much with. So that's all I've got. It was great to talk to y'all this morning.
Let's see here. Thank you so much for that presentation. So just a little personal note, my wife, she's a wedding photographer, so this really hit home for us. We work at a lot of different wedding venues, and so, it's great to see the work that you guys are doing, and, that you have that mindset, because, more times than not, we see what you mentioned, just even if there are, recycling bins and stuff like that, if there is alcohol involved, and, people's minds are on, partying and dancing, and it's just, they're worried about just getting rid of their cup or their can, and they don't really pay much attention to it. So really exciting to hear what you guys are doing, and hopefully other venues can sort of take note and use the things that the resources that you guys are using and stuff like that. So I had a couple questions come in, so if you guys are cool with it, we might move right to the question and answer session. There wasn't too many that came in, but let me find this. It says, let's see. I love the idea of having staff circulate to grab trash directly from guests, but do you have suggestions for large areas like an airport? We have had issues with customers throwing trash in the recycling and contaminating the whole batch.
Ooh, that's a big one. Yeah, an airport's a pretty big space. I don't know if maybe somebody could kind of, I know that as big as that is, like the staffing that you would need to kind of help prevent that. It almost comes down to guest education or somehow keeping it top of mind. So I don't know if there should be an attendant. Oh, that's a big one. That's a challenging question. I feel for you there.
Yeah, definitely. I think, in my opinion, there's a lot of sort of buy-in you have to have from your employees, like whoever, especially, for a big place like an airport, you see those attendants or whatever that are going around and checking the trash and stuff like that, sort of having buy-in from them for, understanding, but then again, it's sort of hard to ask somebody to go through the trash and, sort things if people aren't going to do it initially. So yeah, that's a huge hurdle I could see, especially with a large facility. I think I had another one for you, Cris. It says, love the floral disposal producing homes for foxes. Have guests ever gone with live plants, flowers in pots that could be replanted?
Yes, and we absolutely love that. We've had everything from potted herbs, which I kind of love. There's scents like rosemary actually have some historical connection depending on your genealogy and ancestry, as far as being kind of good luck for a wedding. And then we've had some where they just had little potted gifts for everybody. And then others, actually last Sunday's wedding, going down the aisle, they had Dusty Miller that was in like big containers, and it just looked phenomenal. So yes. And then there's even like kokodama. That's another really cool, it's a Japanese way of having like a hanging planter of sorts, and it's got like moss around it and everything. So yes, very, 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 very cool idea.
Awesome. Yeah, that's similar to what we did for our wedding. We used plants that were able to be either like taken home and could keep surviving in pots, and that was sort of what we gave out to all of our guests. Like if you see something that you like, once we're done, take it with you. Take it home. So this is a question probably for Jeff. I had a question that says, with supply chain issues and logistics, do you have any suggestions for, the local supply chain or locally sourcing supplies?
It depends on who you are and what you're sourcing. There's not really an answer that's universal to that question. If you're a hotel or lodging, it's different from a restaurant, it's different from a retail store, walk-in, different, per household. So I don't know, is there a particular type of business that we could apply that question to?
Let's see. It wasn't specific with it, so if you have specifics with that question, feel free to send those in the chat. So this one says, here's another question that came in. So this is mostly for Cris, but also for both panelists. Do you hire staff who are already interested in sustainability, or do you have a formal training program? And then if so, what do you recommend as the biggest/best ways to encourage buy-in?
I would say most of our employees kind of naturally care, though I've had some that were more like teenagers. They were like just graduated from college, and so they kind of needed, or not college, but high school, and so they needed a little bit more encouragement and understanding that this really is important to us. And to be honest, having to sort through the bin that they messed up is punishment enough and kind of fixes any issues. As far as education goes, it's not really formal. What we do is just all of our staff members just kind of pitch in and training that new person so that they understand, where to sort everything, when, and how we handle everything. So us being so small, trying to make that on a larger scale, I could see could be a little bit more challenging, but I think it's still doable in that way, where you have staff members that do really care, that kind of help force the new person to care.
Yeah, definitely. Jeff, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I can answer it from the consulting side of things. So we're, most people would call us a boutique consulting, for 25-ish people at any time. And usually there's some turnover during the year. We have a couple people turnover this year, so we're hiring 2 to replace them, plus a third because the business is growing. We're looking for people that have preferably studied something related to sustainability. There's quite a few more programs right now, undergrad and grad school. So, looking for that on a resume, unless it's a straight out of college hire, looking for people that have some form of working in sustainability at a company or another consulting firm. It's a super hot job market right now. It's growing immensely for a lot of reasons. So it's fairly volatile. So there's a lot more jobs, and there's a lot more people looking, and there's a lot more turnover. So it's something that we are dealing with on a week-to-week basis. But the best candidates are the ones that have done some form of work at another organization and preferably studied something related in college.
Awesome. here's another question that just came in for you, Jeff. It says, what would you say would be the best green/sustainable or sustainability certification for an airport? You mentioned the B Corp. Is that the best for like a large operation?
It depends what your intent is. In many cases, certifications are a response to some stakeholders pushing for it or a requirement of it. You know, there's often times a reference to Walmart and the Walmart effect. You know, from Walmart's standpoint, Walmart set a bunch of sustainability goals, ESG goals, and then pushed them through their supply chain, starting with the largest ones and then kind of moving into tiers. And so, you know, in many cases, companies are responding to something like that Walmart effect. So if you're at the airport, at an airport, and you're responding to a stakeholder request, then you would need to look and see what specifically is in that request and how you would need it. B Corp is an option. There's another framework. It's based out of London, called the Future Fit Business Benchmark. Companies and cities have engaged in that. I'm sure an airport could too. There's another group in California that runs something called the Ecological Footprint. It's the Global Footprint Network, and that looks across all aspects of sustainability too. They've applied the ecological footprint to countries and cities, and now are moving into businesses and organizations like airports. So I would recommend looking at least at those three. There are others, and then it would, you know, behoove you then to look at what are the actual line item things that each of those frameworks are asking for and see which one applies most to you. You know, so if someone else is requiring it of you, then that's an easier assignment. If it's you proactively trying to do it, then it'll be on you to do the homework and the analysis to determine which framework fits best for your own internal reasons for engaging in that.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. And there was a little, or she added a little bit more into the question, saying the intent would be for tenants, like restaurants and shops, and then she said also the airport staff and offices and the building itself, then possibly aircraft ground service equipment. So just a little bit more specifics on that question.
Okay, that's very interesting because actually it's not signed yet, but we're about to do work with a company that their footprint is about 1,000 airport businesses across like 150 airports, and we've done a similar project for a European competitor of theirs over in Europe. So whoever this is, maybe I should talk to you, pick your brain. Given that situation, B Corp's a little more, in my opinion, socially focused than environmentally focused. The ecological footprint from the Global Footprint Network is a lot more environmentally focused. It does include social. And then the Future Fit Business Benchmark, is a nice kind of optimal in between. So if you kind of want to do both, that would be my general guidance. That if you're going to go more socially, B Corp, more environmentally, Global Footprint Networks, ecological footprint. If you want to do both kind of an equal level, Future Fit Business Benchmark, and happy to do a call with you to walk you through them if you're interested.
Yeah, that was what I was going to say. Everyone that's asking questions, you know, if you want to pick Jeff or Chris's brain a little bit more, their emails are on this slide here, so feel free to reach out to them, and hopefully there can be some collaboration or, you know, just a little bit of information sharing there. We really appreciate everyone's involvement and the questions that were asked. I think that really adds a lot to the presentation. Let's see, and then I guess I'll pass it over to Sophia to close this out.
Yeah, thank you everyone for all the thoughtful questions. This has been super engaging, and it's honestly been a great honor being able to develop this whole webinar series independently with the support from my colleague and inputs from other speakers. It's been a great experience as part of my internship, so I just want to thank y'all for being a part of that. see, let's see. So this is the website showing our Sustainable Hospitality program, and we are definitely planning on adding this webinar series as an additional section as a resource, as a part of the resource hub that we currently already provide. But if you go on to the website that I sent at the beginning of the webinar series to the chat box, you should be able to find the different programs that OSP provides, including this program specifically. And in the end, I just want to say, stay connected with us. There's a lot of awesome programs going on in our offices. When I first onboarded as an intern, I was honestly surprised by the variety of programs that we provide for different industries and functions. So it's been a great pleasure with y'all. Me and the speakers, we can stay over for a minute or two to see if anyone has a follow-up question, would just like to say hi. But thank y'all so much for attending today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. This was